Oh, we're live. Hello.
Hello.
Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly, Uncensored.
Hello. We are here.
Hi.
Can you hear that, Holly?
Yeah, it's faint.
Is it? What about? Is that better? Or is it still faint?
It's the same.
Okay. They're
Which is
so.
okay. I would rather have that than like blaring when I can't hear over it.
I love when you listen to some podcasts where it's just like, "Hey, girl, how you doing? Oh my god!" I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So we were not able to be here for the past week because Holly, you had the COVID.
I did have the COVID.
Yes.
I no longer have the COVID. Jess Star on Facebook asked how I'm feeling today with COVID. I don't have it anymore. As a matter of fact, I have a little bit of a cough. Sorry. I don't have the COVID. I just got the cough.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
There are some times when we're doing the show, and obviously the past week when you've had COVID, and I feel bad, but it's like, because we listen, unfortunately, which is why I need closed captioning now when I watch stuff. We have our headphones turned up so loud, and so we'll be in the middle of something, and you just have to clear your throat. But the way your studio is set up, it's not easy for you to turn it down quickly, your microphone.
Yeah.
And so you'll be like, and I'm like, whoa!
Sorry.
It's fine. But it's like, I'm always wondering, I'm like, I wonder what that sounds like in people's car, like if they can hear it. Because when I listen to like because probably once a week, I'll listen back to our audio from the show when I'm in the car, just to make sure everything sounds cohesive and okay, and I didn't miss anything. Like you don't hear stuff like that because you're driving or the window's down, or if it's during the school year, you got kids, and so you don't hear that. But when my headphones are like turned up to like 90, and I'm just like,
I'm sorry.
That's all right, girl. You had COVID.
I
Your
know, but
throat
I'll
was
make
attacked.
a better effort. Like reach over there and hit that button.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when I do it, literally, I can I got dinosaur hands, and I can just go, and you can't hear it. Whereas, like, you have to like turn all the way around.
I'm like, beep beep beep. Sounds weird.
But how are you?
I'm fine. I have a little bit of, like Miguel said, this throat clearing thing. Nothing is wrong with lungs or anything like that. Like I can breathe. I just have a little bit of a cough left over, which was weird because the first time I had COVID back in 2020, I didn't have any cough or anything at all. But this time around with this new variant, I had a little something and had to cough some stuff up. I'm still just as a couple things I got to cough up every now and then. But I feel fine. Our company's policy is that you have to test negative to come back to work. So I did. I would say, I think I was just down and out for 5 days positively. I really only felt bad this time last week through maybe Sunday morning. It was very short-lived. It was even more short-lived for my kid, who, while I was still feeling a little bit tired and kind of yucky on Saturday afternoon, she suddenly got over it at like 2 p.m. She took like a little mid-morning nap, and then she started getting better. Then by 2 p.m., she was jumping on me. She's like, hey, let's go do something. I'm like, I am so happy that you feel better. Mom doesn't feel better, though. So can we not?
Mama's done.
But she was like, she was over just sitting around in the house. But I'm doing fine. So thank you for your concern. No more COVID. We out of here with that. Bye.
And Jess also said she had it for 2 weeks.
Oof.
It's just so crazy how people's body reacts differently to it. You know, like there are some people that deal with the long COVID. And I'm just so, if you're dealing with that, like my heart goes out to you, because I could not imagine being sick and that down and out for that long.
I know.
Because thankfully, when I had it back in November of 2020, my husband Abe, he had it worse than I did, and then he got it again this January, and I didn't. And so I was just like, God, I just feel so bad when people have to deal with that.
I know it. And the thing is, you can't really ask someone else like, oh, what's it like? It's different for everybody.
Right.
It hits you different. You can have different symptoms. Some people have a high fever. I really didn't have a fever at all. Like I had a low grade, like 99.4 for a couple of days. That was about it. My boyfriend was like up at like 102.4 the first night. So it was just, it's different for everybody.
Ugh. Well,
Anyway,
I'm
back
glad.
in.
Now I'm glad you're doing well, and we're back because I had a couple people be like, "Where's the podcast this week? We were like back on it," and I'm like, "I'm sorry. I know like life happens sometimes. You were barely just making it on the show." So
I know. I was not feeling up to doing a podcast while I didn't feel that great. So
you're sick. So
yeah.
it's fine.
Well, so otherwise, other than that, back in the shuffle.
What's really cool is I just figured out. So if you listen on iTunes to the podcast, you can now get Miguel and Holly full show on iTunes.
Nice.
And so you can listen obviously on the iHeartRadio app, Miguel and Holly full show, but you can now listen on the iTunes, on iTunes. And soon to come, probably by the time you hear this, it'll be on Spotify as well. So you'll be able to get the full show on Spotify. And I am right now in the process of creating a dedicated channel just for Blown Off as well.
Oh, people will like that so much.
Yeah, so you can literally like put it on the Miguel and Holly's Blown Off. That'll be on iTunes and Spotify. And so you'll be able to just sit and just binge listen to everything, to all the Blown Offs and stuff. So, and obviously all of that is housed on the iHeartRadio app, but just giving you more opportunities to listen, because I do want to just give a quick shout out and thank you to our Miguel and Holly fam.
Yes.
To the past Miguel and Holly fam, the OG that have come with us for the ride, and then to the new ones, because we just got some great news when it comes to our digital stuff that we put out there, that like us being new with the iHeart company, they're already like, oh, y'all got a lot of downloads, girl. We already made it to like the top.
You're welcome.
What did he say? We made it the top 20 or 30 or something. What did he say?
I don't remember. I don't remember the stat. It might have been top 30.
Yeah, but top 30.
But it might have been better than that. Basically what they said is that the way that we do our digital stuff is, I don't mean to sound like braggy, but like the way that we've been doing our digital stuff, always have been, even in Tampa, we brought it to iHeart, and apparently it's doing better than a majority of what other shows and how they do their digital stuff.
And I was like,
I don't want that to sound bad. Like,
no, it's not. I mean, those literally are the words that came out of Homeboy's mouth. So I was just like, oh my God. Because of course,
it was big news.
Like, I always assume that like what we do is trash. And I'm just like, I was like, literally, he was like, can I schedule a quick meeting for you all? And I'm like, oh, he's going to tell us that everything we do sucks. And
he's going to be like, are you even utilizing this correctly? Because there's just no numbers. That wasn't it though.
No. So that was really, 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 really cool to hear. So thank you for listening and being curious and wanting to hear. So iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio app, you can just type in Miguel and Holly Full Show, Miguel and Holly Uncensored, or Miguel and Holly's Blown Off. So giving you all the ways to listen. Let me just see what Julia said real quick. I just moved to Tampa from Charlotte. How odd you left me to go there, but catching you daily on iHeartRadio. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I feel like there's a lot of connection that I never knew about between Tampa and Charlotte, which has been really interesting about people that I've met here in Charlotte that are like, oh yeah, I used to live in Tampa, or, vice versa or whatever. So it's been really interesting to see that.
Yeah, I'm agreed. I never knew that. That's cool.
So Holly, how are you otherwise outside of the COVID?
Like, I don't know why the phrase in my life is, when it rains, it pours. It just is. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that I'm not really willing to share right now. That is heavy. And then also my mom, who the last time I spoke about my mom, I was like crying and all this stuff about her getting her trying to qualify for Medicaid. Well, about a week and a half ago, I was taking her I took her to like a routine doctor's office visit for her recent brain surgery that she had in March to have that tumor removed. And here it had gotten a big infection. So the doctor was like, we need to get her to the hospital like right now. I'm like, do I need to schedule something? He's like, no, I mean, I'm taking her from this office to the hospital. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is not going to go well. And I knew it. And I was like, there's nothing you can do. Like, this
Right.
woman has an infection underneath her scalp, underneath her skull. And I'm like, shit, honestly, because she's got to have some kind of like early onset, or not early onset, that's the wrong term, but like she's got some kind of dementia. I know this. I don't care that they haven't given me a diagnosis for it, whatever. When someone like her that's delicately balanced in a mental state anyway, because she hates the place that she's in, I'm not a fan of it either, but she had been making some small progress. Like on June 1st, when I took her to the doctor that day, she was doing okay. Like she could grasp concepts and could understand things and had like some memories of like good recent short-term memories. I take her to that appointment. I'm like, this is all going to be totally erased. Because you take somebody with dementia like that, or any kind of cognitive issue to the hospital, my mom will go into hospital delirium. Like she turns into an absolute like psychotic, like doesn't have any grasp of reality whatsoever.
Right.
And I'm like, this is going to happen. Not only just being in the hospital does that cause that, but then she had to go under anesthesia, and that can be really damaging to older people too. So they had to like prep her for surgery the next day. So they had to remove part of the skull bone because the infection was like clinging to it.
Oh,
and I'm like, so what does that mean? And the doctor's like, well, right now there's just a hole and the skin is covering it. I'm like, there's a hole and her fucking brain is just exposed?
oh my God.
What the fuck? So that surgery happens. Like, I'm like, this is not going to go well. And of course, she woke up from surgery and was just psychotic. I knew. It's so, like, I've gotten a little numb to it, but it's, of course, just devastating. I'm like, we had made some progress. Now, no. But, like, she's been in the hospital since June 1st, and it's now the 10th. And the main reason that she's been in the hospital this long post-surgery, because if she was mentally well, she probably would have been discharged from the hospital like 3 days later.
Right.
But she was so unaware of her surroundings and just dangerous to herself and others because she's aggressive and like hallucinating and delusional and all of it. So I'm like, and then I got COVID. So I couldn't even go.
Right.
I couldn't even go to the hospital. And my dog's dying. Did I tell you the latest on Nala?
No.
Well, we knew she had diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went her, and this was about 3 weeks ago now. We took her in for extra diabetes testing, and we've been skilled and trained in how to give the shots. My boyfriend gave her the shot in the morning and then took her to the doctor for like a day-long thing with diabetes. And the doctor's like, I don't think he gave her the shot. I'm like, no, he did. She's like, I don't mean to call it into question. I'm like, so I call him. I'm like, did you not give her the shot for the diabetes? He's like, I did. I'm like, okay. I call back. I'm like, he did give her the shot. Like, he's not going to lie. Why would he lie about that? She's like, well, then I have bad news.
Oh.
She has Cushing's disease as well.
That's
when you have a tumor, one of two places. The dog. The dog can either have a tumor. Oh, God.
You're fine. Holly's coughing.
Sorry. The dog either has a tumor on their pituitary gland or in their adrenal glands. Like 85 to 90% of dogs with Cushing's have the tumor on the pituitary gland, which you can take medicine for. Like, it just throws your the whole dog's whole body out of whack, and you can't control the diabetes unless you get that under control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, our dog has the adrenal tumor, they think, not the pituitary one. If the dog has tumors on the adrenal glands, the only way they can fix that is by giving the dog an MRI just to double check, and then having surgery to remove the tumors. I'm like, this dog is 12. We're going to spend all this money for what? Another maybe year and a half?
Right.
I can't. And like, things are tight anyway right now because of all the stuff going on with my mom.
Right.
I'm like, and you want to put her through all that stress?
Right.
I'm like, well, and my boyfriend's like, well, can we just start the pills and see if that helps? And she's like, no, because it won't help either way. And it's like, the pills are kind of expensive. I'm like, well, what's the point of the MRI? She's like, to know for sure whether it is the adrenal glands. I'm like, no, just no. So she's just a mess. I think we've got probably a few months because she's still active. She
Right.
still wants to play sometimes. But that's all going on. And then just like the other stuff, it's just heavy. And so this has not been the best month for me. It just hasn't been. And I really do try as much as I'm able to check the baggage at the door and, lose myself in the fun and the excitement of the show. And I think sometimes I do a pretty good job. Sometimes I know I'm not doing a good job at that. But it's life, and I'm trying my best. I do promise that. I don't ever think I'm giving you like a subpar show. If anything, it's just maybe a little bit less than it could be. It's not bad.
What's the hardest part about having all of that when you walk through the doors? And I'm like, Holly, we're going to drink balsamic vinegar, seltzer, and ice as the healthy Coke and try it.
What's the hardest part?
Like, what's the hardest part about separating all of that?
I think it is the separating. Like the compartmentalization, which I'm pretty good at. Sometimes, like, no matter how much you tell your brain to put that aside for right now and focus on something else, sometimes when there's just too much and it's too emotional, it leaks over. And the focus is a very difficult thing for me. Like when I'm dealing with these like life traumas, but also trying to drink balsamic vinegar seltzer waters. It's this weird like juxtaposition of like, what the fuck is my life right now?
Right.
It's hard. It bleeds over, and it's just like I can tell because and what the worst thing is, when I had COVID, my focus was like totally gone. So a week ago, like Friday's show, I know that was not good. There was already stuff going on in my life. Then I was sick, and trying to focus was almost impossible. Like just trying to write the descriptions for the show segments, I was like, what am I talking about right now?
Like, oh, hooja, cooja, booja, wooja, whoo.
I was like, focus. But like the focus and the compartmentalization is just difficult. But like, I love you so much because we have such a good bond and a good friendship. It just, that helps everything because it feels easy. This feels very routine, which is helpful. It feels very safe being in the radio studio. And so it's almost like, soothing to compartmentalize because the other parts of my life are so insane right now.
Right.
That it's a relief to be able to have to put them aside and focus on this. But the compartmentalization can be difficult when when things are too emotionally heavy and then the focus gets lost. Because what'll happen is, and I've never struggled with like attention focus or anything like that, like whatever. But I have some now because I'll be doing a task and I'm like working on my stuff, and then a thought like bleeds over and I'm like, oh God, I didn't think about that. And then I'm like, I almost feel compelled to like do a quick little bit of research on something. And I'll pull up another window and I'm like, what about this?
Right.
And then if we're lucky, I will get a quick answer, shove it aside, and go back to my task at hand. If we're not lucky, and this has happened a few times, not many, because I'm pretty mentally good at pushing. A few times, a thought will come in. I'll be like, let me put this aside, and then I'll pull up a new browser, and I'll and I'll look, and I'm like, oh, this is worse. This has made it worse. Now I'm in a rabbit hole. Let me look some more. Oh God. Now the emotions are involved. It's not just thoughts. Now I feel a type of way. And before I know it, like the only thing that actually pulls me out is hearing you or hearing like something on the station or some sort of pattern disruption. And then I'll be like, okay, get it together. Not right now. And boom, I'm back.
Right.
So that's just the focus and the compartmentalization. That's the hard part. But once I'm in it, it's soothing and it's comfortable to be here.
It's really just interesting how, how people deal with just this job or just any job in general, because I just feel like lately everybody's going through something. And I don't know if it's because the people in my orbit are, in their like early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s. And there's just like something in the air happening. But I just feel like everyone is in this just sort of like period of transition, but like it's a painful transition that hopefully will produce great results on the end. But everybody's going
Yeah,
through something right now.
I
And so it's
know.
just been really
I know.
interesting to just hear how everybody is like coping with it in the different aspects of it.
Agreed. I feel like a lot of people are becoming a little bit more just energetically aware or just, more present in their life. And have you heard the term like the dark night of the soul?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's like when you have a healing journey and like you're brought to your knees in some form or another, and you're forced to like come face to face with all the dark parts of you that you probably try to push away and don't address.
Mm-hmm.
And it can really take you down. I mean, for weeks, months, a year. It's called the dark night of the soul. And so I've had one of those moments. I had one a while back, and I started really getting into spirituality at that time, which is why I found out that's what that was. And it's like you learn a lot about yourself and you go deep into yourself and like your connection to the world around you. And you can then come out the other side more healed, more learned on things, more knowledgeable. And you start to like sort of build back up in a new way becoming the newest, best version of yourself. What I didn't realize until rather recently is I was like, well, I got mine out of the way. Good. There might not just be one.
It's a
Like,
continual.
it's a continuum
Right.
of like, okay, that one got you to this point where now you're ready for the next one because the next one might be worse. And you
Right.
couldn't have handled this one until you got through the first one,
Right.
whatever that case may be. And so I say that to say, this may be another one of mine. And it's hard when you're in it. I didn't even know I was in it when I was in it last time, so that made it a little easier. The awareness is good, but like being aware that like you're in a dark night of the soul where you're just being stripped down to like bare bones, having to like hurt and be in pain and suffer and surrender
Mm.
to it, to life, to the universe. Ask, what's my lesson here?
Right.
Knowing that you're going through it, man, it's hard. And the bonus, though, the benefit, I guess, of the awareness is that I do realize it's not going to last forever. I'm able to see that there is, that life goes like in cycles like this. Like it can't be like this all the time because the one constant is change. So like I'm just at a low point right now.
Right.
At some other point, things will calm down and I will get into a routine, and it may even feel a little boring, but it's going to be so peaceful.
Right.
And happy because that happened after the last time. So that part is coming. I know that I'm not through the thick of it yet, though.
Mm.
Like I'm just in it, and there's going to be some heavier shit coming through with all the different moving parts and pieces of my life. This is like, I'm having a breather this week, but, I'm about to be taken back down again. But eventually the storm passes and the sunlight comes out and your nervous system calms a little bit. And like I said, you get into a routine and you're like, I made it. Let me look back on what I learned about myself. What are some of the positives that came out of this? Am I stronger in different areas of my life? And man, I'm looking forward to that. But it's just not here yet. And then hopefully for whatever lessons were learned or whatever new insights were gained, I'll have use for those in the new highest version of myself. Be able to take on more bigger things, stand in my power because I have it, just feels a little disconnected right now. But, use all these trials to form something even more unbreakable.
Cindy on the Miguel and Holly Facebook page said, I can understand Holly completely. And I agree with Miguel. Everyone's going through something right now. Ever since Hurricane Michael, my life has not been the same. And I know it won't be because of having to start completely over and everything we had is gone. I know Cindy is from Panama City. And so that was like a definite like point marker.
That's a before and after.
And now it's sort of like you get through just the trauma of having your hometown decimated. And then you just sort of like are in reaction mode and you're just trying to build it together. And then now that you settled, you got to deal with the other stuff that happens. And so something is definitely happening right now.
You're not in fight or flight anymore because that was just that you have PTSD from that horrific experience. But like you're not necessarily in fight or flight, but you're like, wait, I have to still make sense of my new life.
Right.
And nobody necessarily, like the people that go through tragedy and trauma, like nobody asked for this. You know? Nobody asked for it, but like here we are,
girl,
and we're dealing with it.
That's part of life, honey. It's like no one is in control. None of us are in control.
It's a hard one for me. Like,
and the moment that we realize that, and to me, that was a lesson I had to learn early on. And I think it was like after college is when I finally like had it like put into my brain, because when I went to college, I had a literal 40-year, 50-year plan. Like on my old blog back in the day, it was like, by the time I'm 25, by the time I'm 35, literally around this age is when I was supposed to be like buying a radio station. And then into the next 10 years, I was going to buy a magazine. And then by the time I hit my 50s, I was going to have a media corporation equal to like Viacom, because that's where Miguel's head was back then. But then when I got to college, and I don't remember who told me this, but they were like, you can have a roadmap for life, but you have to be willing to take detours, because you are never, ever, 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 ever going to take that path that you thought that you were going to take. You are not in control at all.
No.
But it's okay to have a roadmap, but just know, girl, you about to take a detour here, a detour there, and a detour everywhere.
Yeah. In the loss of what you thought life might look like can be a little devastating.
Right.
For any number of reasons. But I was going to say too, Miguel, like that roadmap that you had laid out, it doesn't account for life happening to you. Like it doesn't account for any, like that's your life plan in a vacuum.
Right.
Right. So like that's your life plan. If nothing ever were to ever, like it doesn't work, but
it's
like,
not even possible, because that was 2003.
We don't interact with no one. And how would you even get to be the president of Viacom if you didn't interact with anyone? Like other people influence the way that our lives are going to go all the time. And other like like when Cindy was talking about Hurricane Michael, environmental factors, mental health factors,
politics.
Family, politics, the state of the world. You know, we're just, I want to say reacting, but I'd rather say responding because that's what we should be doing.
Right.
I mean, reacting is like, that's what we do automatically. But if we take a beat, responding to the world as we see it every day.
I found this interesting thread that we actually learned to in part of our metrics that we got for the podcast, that a good bit of you in the fam actually listen. I think, what was it, 84% of the way through?
No, it's 84% of people listen all the way through.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And I was like, what? Like,
I know.
I was
like,
literally like,
me.
No one makes it to the end.
No.
Like, that's not possible.
I'm like, by the time we get to the end, there's like one lone person listening, and they're like, well, that was a good episode. No, 84% of people that listen to this podcast listen all the way through.
So once again, thank you so much for making us look good to our bosses. So anyway, this is a little lengthy, but I'm gonna read it because I thought this was so fascinating. And I literally, for the past 3 days when I get home, I've been trying to think about how to like pare it down into a 4-minute segment on our show. And I'm like, it's not possible. We're gonna have to do it on the podcast. It's not
Sometimes
possible.
It's just not. It's just not.
So someone tweeted this tweet.
Okay.
People in their 30s need to stop bitching about how they're getting old. You aren't getting old, but your depressing outlook sure as hell is.
Mm.
Okay. So then
Yeah.
someone retweeted it and then they went down a whole rabbit hole. So just gear up, get a tea, and listen in.
Okay.
Okay. I actually want to talk about this for a second regarding millennials and how really gosh damn difficult it is for us to make sense of our own age sometimes. I haven't done like a sociology about this, but I strongly suspect that a significant percentage of us are struggling with the fact that many of the benchmarks for different stages of adulthood that we grew up with no longer apply to us, and it's causing us to feel unmoored. Adults
Mm.
are supposed to get married. A lot of us aren't getting married. Adults are supposed to have kids. A lot of us aren't doing that. Adults are supposed to get past college and get a real job. A lot of us aren't doing that. Adults are supposed to stop playing with toys or at least switch to different toys like tools and cars and boats. And add to the fact that we literally don't experience time the way we used to. Time is both stretched and collapsed, especially right now. Years feel like months. Weeks feel like years. The past is smashed into the future, which folds into the present.
Jesus.
Not done. Not to mention that those of us who are in the workforce, I'm sorry. Let me see how she has this. Okay, and not to mention that those of us who are in the workforce have to move from entry-level job to entry-level job because no one wants to give us benefits or fair wages. This. What even is a job anymore? What the hell is a career? How does one get those? We're a generation of underpaid and unpaid labor. Labor and its stability and the identity it gives you is one of the ways we were always supposed to know we were grown the hell up. Where is that for us? Some of us have it, but it does not define our adulthood the way it did with our parents. I was having tea with, and she tagged a person last year and talking about all this stuff I buy and wear and wondering if there was an age when I wasn't allowed to have it anymore. Is there an age when I can no longer wear skinny jeans? But I like skinny jeans. And please spare me. You're only as old as you feel and wear whatever you want because, my dude, that is useless and entirely beside my point. My point is that I don't know what adult means. I'm looking around for clothes for anything that is a cultural benchmark of what it means to be 40-year-old Sunny and 50-year-old Sunny. And I swear to God, I have absolutely nothing. I don't know what that looks like. One of the things this means is that a lot of millennials feel stuck in arrested development. And you see the reinforcement of our infantilization through the think pieces about us. People write about us like we're still barely in college, when a lot of us are entering our mid and even late 30s. A lot of us are close to 40 goddamn years old. You see, the word itself doesn't even know how old we are. But something else that happens, and I notice this so keenly myself in these days, is a sense of panic that we're getting older and running out of time and we haven't even grown the fuck up yet. Think about that for a second. We're not complaining about how we're getting old, or at least I'm not. That's not what makes my stomach quivery. It's the sense that the world is speeding up, and I'm running out of time, and I don't own a house, and I don't have kids, and oh my God, what the fuck? We're not in a midlife crisis. Millennials are experiencing a goddamn crisis of temporality?
Okay.
I don't know what that means. Temorality. We don't know if we're old. We don't know if we're young. We don't know what we're doing. We've lost our guideposts, our benchmarks, our rubrics for life, and people blame us for it. And it really doesn't help that we're approaching middle age, whatever that means anymore, in a deeply toxic economic system with a global future certainly very much in doubt, and our parents won't stop fucking us over. So the next time you hear a millennial in their 30s complaining about feeling old, maybe listen to the words behind the words, because we are living through some shit and our knees and backs hurt and we don't have health insurance. Also, there's a very real prospect that many of us won't be able to afford to retire. We're not the only generation facing that, or the only generation that's ever faced that. But you need to understand that we're facing that in the context of having been lied to. Oh, and please don't respond to this with other people have gone through this too, because A, I know I do social, historical, academic work. B, every generation experiences similar trends in different ways, and we're experiencing radical differences from what our parents did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go into even longer Twitter essay about atemporality, but please just understand that this is not something about which I'm prepared to argue. It's just true. And then she's like, I'm not even going to get into like talking about race and class and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a whole, and that adds to it.
Okay. And then she posts a picture of her hair and says, I'm 34 and this is what my hairline looks like. So anyway, I saw that and I was like, what?
I like it when a Twitter thread can like leave me with my mouth open and I don't realize it until after. And I'm like, there's a breeze on my tongue. Oh, let me close my mouth.
I was like, that's so, because I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, or the past couple years, where I feel like time just feels weird, because I feel like when I look through my pictures, like when I'm doing stuff for the show and I have to like find a picture of us, and I scroll through pictures and I feel like I see pictures of us when we used to do this like nightclub thing in Tampa, every Friday night with the nightclub. And I'm like, wow, okay, you definitely look like early 30s here. Like you're having fun. You're out on a Friday night working your career. And then I just feel like the pandemic, like it just stopped. And it's like the world paused. And now we're in like another part where I was like asleep for. Like there's some weird times where I'm like watching social media or I'm watching a TV show and I'm just like, am I old or am I young? Because people that are older than me tell me that I'm young, but then younger people tell me that I'm old.
And it's
Where
weird
are we?
because I don't feel old.
Right.
But when I look back at like pictures of when I'm in my 20s, I'm like, that was a long time ago.
Right.
And I have memories of that like they were yesterday, but also I have other memories from between now and then that were also not like, I don't know. And I'm 40, okay? I'm 40.
Right.
Anytime I ever heard that number, I'd be like, oh, God, that's an old ass bitch.
Right.
Not now. I don't feel old, but I also do feel old sometimes. Like I was talking to my person and I can't give you context. I don't even know what brought this about. I just know that the sentiment stuck.
Right.
I'm like, did you ever just get the feeling back in your 20s like you just couldn't wait to go out? Can't wait to go out. Like to a club.
Right.
Because I, in my 20s, could not wait to go out to a club. Like I waited all week for Friday so I could go to a club.
Absolutely.
And now I'm waiting all week so I can sit on my couch with a Truly and watch Stranger Things. And I'm like, that obviously is a signifier that I'm a little old because I don't want to go the fuck out.
Right.
Oh yeah, sometimes I want to go out, but it's rare. It's rarer than the couch scenario. And like with social media, I want to go back to that point that you said that sometimes you see social media and you don't know like what age you are.
Yeah.
Because I'll see people that are younger than me and be like, oh, that's my same age friend. Like we're doing stuff at the same level. Or then sometimes I see people that look like they might be my age, but they look old.
Right.
And I'm like, social media fucks me up sometimes.
Well,
I'm like,
I think
what's
it's
real here?
What's done it for us all, because I mean, when you think about, and I think this is why I'm getting and loving history so much, is like, granted, these are sweeping generalizations, obviously, because things were different, for everyone. But when you think about the 90s, when you think about what we were consuming then, and like, we had cable, but if you were like in your, middle school, elementary school, you were probably watching like TGIF. And back then, like we had cable, but we didn't have all the different types of channels we had. So like Friday, all of us in elementary school were watching TGIF. We were watching Step by Step and Family Matters and all that stuff. And so you always knew to be an adult, you have 2 parents, you have 2 kids, you have a dog, maybe have a grandma that kind of busts in and is bumbling, and then you have some tomfoolery, and then you go to college, and then you get a job, and then you get married and you have kids. And so that's what we were told. But
Mhm,
then like millennials decided to we decided to switch it up.
mhm.
But then like social media showed us all these different ways. And so we don't have, like she said in that Twitter post, these guideposts of like, I think so. I saw somebody tweet that the Taylors on Home Improvement,
Yeah.
they were like in their early 30s on that show.
What?
So
In
like
the Tool Man Taylor?
like in my mind, I'm like, oh, they were like in their 50s, right? Like
I
they
know,
were
like, in my mind, I'm like, they had to be late 40s.
right. Like there was no, they're in their 30s. So like that's what we thought we were supposed to be by 30. And like
We didn't. And I also think, just as a quick aside, like being in radio has totally fucked us too. Like, and I did the thing. I did the thing where I got married in my 20s and then had a kid. And then I
Mhm.
realized, oh my God, what if I have to not be in this scenario anymore? I
Mm,
failed.
right,
I failed the test of becoming an adult, because that's what an adult is, right?
right.
And then I had to like when we got divorced, I went back out and I was like, how do I do this now?
Right.
And I just feel like my life has never been the normal thing. I moved away from my family. I don't
Mhm.
have family.
Right.
Like, I it's
It's weird.
weird.
Adrian on Miguel and Holly YouTube live said, I'll be 40 in August. And while that doesn't make me feel old, losing my grandparents and that generation makes me feel old.
Mm.
Ariel said, I get excited about plans, or I make the plans to go out, and then this crushing weight of anxiety falls on me and I just can't. I mean, and I think that I feel like instead of writing stimulus checks, the government should just write therapy checks for everybody.
God, I wish.
Because and hey mom, I'm gonna tell your business a little bit. Sorry. Even my mom, who's never really talked about mental health or anything like that, she's even like, all right, I think I need to, because she's getting to this point where whatever that phobia is where you can't leave the house,
Agoraphobia.
agoraphobia, she's starting to get a little touch of it, to where like she's terrified to leave the house. And like whenever she's out, the few times a month that she goes out, she's like, I need to get back to the house. And I'm like, well, what has you terrified? And she's just like, the state of the world. People are shooting each other, and there's viruses, and there's all these things happening in the world. And so I think that our access to information has also not made it great for us.
No, it's done the opposite. Like, we have too much information.
Right. And so I think all of those factors have led us to be, I want to say, almost lost a little bit. Like we just don't know what the guideposts are. Like I know that if we don't get out of the hum game on our show by 7:28, we're going to be late to blown off at 7:40.
Yeah.
That's my guidepost. I know when we have to be done with the hum game. When are we supposed to like know when we've reached a certain point? It's really interesting right now.
Yeah.
We're all going through it.
As the collective, and everyone loves to be like, all millennials and their therapy. Well, I'm sorry. We're the first generation to decide to do something about it and not
Right.
just pass it on to our kids.
Right.
I would say some Gen Xers did it, but a lot of them were just like, I got enough going on. I'm just going to go do my own thing.
Right.
Of course, boomers didn't. They just kept doing the same old shit,
They
thinking
bared
of a
down.
different result. Yeah. So, like, I appreciate the Gen Xers that tried to start that path, but like generally, the millennials are like, wait, this isn't working. This is not working. We need to try something different.
It's really interesting. And we'll end with this. There is a show called We Crashed on Apple TV Plus. So you've probably heard of the business WeWork. It's sort of like those community office buildings where, you know, if you work from home, you can go set up shop there, you pay a membership, and you get to work in these beautiful offices, community workspace. They have kombucha on tap and whatever. Well, this show is so fascinating. Jared Leto plays the guy Adam Newman who created it, and Anne Hathaway plays his wife Rebecca Newman. They both are fantastic in their roles. Anne Hathaway does not get enough credit, and Jared Leto either. Neither of them do. They're fantastic, brilliant in the show.
Mhm.
But they built this show. It's one of 3 shows that talks about that, like, older, like, wait, they would be almost like Gen X millennial people that rode that sort of tech wave for like
Okay.
Uber, Facebook, WeWork, all those type of companies where they built it up through technology, and then they had the IPO, then they went public and made billions of dollars instantly. Well, this talks about this whole WeWork thing, how this guy was just uh, a maniac basically and used a bunch of people to become a billionaire.
Well, so many people that get to that level are mentally disordered in that way. They're either like sociopaths, narcissists, um, have some sort of issue because for them, it actually allows them to get to the top
Right.
by like lack of sleep, using
Mhm.
people and not feeling that bad about it, or whatever the case may be. So many higher up positions are taken over by people that may be disordered.
Well, and that's what, part of the end of the show talks about. And this is a true based on a true story, so I'm not spoiling anything. But one of the scenes they have, like the culture that they created was like, yeah, millennials, come work with us. We've got kombucha on tap, and we have happy hour every night, and people are hooking up in the office, and it's fun and it's great.
No.
And then like you have all these people in the boardroom, and they're like, oh, they're millennials. We just give them free pizza and beer, and they get to hook up and have fun, and we don't pay them anything, but it's fine. And I'm like, how many of us in our generation worked in careers like that through our
Mhm.
20s and through our early 30s, and now in our early or mid 30s we're like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do? And so you have these businesses that were built on the backs of millennials who were like, well, this is supposed to be like a different way of life, and this is what I want to do. But then what's cool, there's a scene where like the millennials like step up and they're like, no, this isn't right what you're doing. You can't say these things. You can't treat me this way. And that's when people are like, oh, these sensitive millennials. And we're just like, you taught us better. And so we're not going to take it.
Mhm.
It's a super fascinating show. It's called We Crashed on Apple TV Plus.
Okay.
All right, Holly, what's your social media?
Radio Holly on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
My name is Miguel Fuller on all of the social media posts. Also, please follow the Miguel and Holly account and the Hits 96.1 Insta and Facebook page as well.
And thank you to everybody that was watching on Facebook or on YouTube for your well wishes and thoughts and prayers and good energies to me and my family. Listen, I believe in the power of that shit. So I will accept any and all. We're going through it. And like I said, I'll come out at some point, but just know that Holly O'Connor's going through it right now.
She says she's going through it, girl. And I want to give a shout out real quick to the people that have commented that we didn't say. Like Amy said something on here. Laura, Top Life, Carol, Christy, Michael, Anne Marie, Julie, Rita. So just want to say, Kelly, thank you so much for listening, and Drew Moore up there. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we will be back on Monday. Bye, y'all.
Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Catch it on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to podcasts.